So let me go ahead and see if this will share with you guys. Can you see my screen, video?
Oh, not yet.
Okay, let's, all right. There we go. Okay, let's see. Can you see it now?
Yeah, it's loading. Yes,
Okay,
that it is.
perfect. Okay, so let me go from the beginning here. Okay, can you see teachers up in big letters? Okay, great.
That's right.
Okay. So as Ovidio just said, this is communicative language teaching, practical implications in the EFL classroom. And also, as he just said, I am a former middle school teacher, but I'm also a former journalist. So communication has been something that I've always been pretty good at. And I have done lots of things in the communication field. As I said, I was a journalist, I was a reporter, I worked in public relations for a while at the University of Arkansas, and I wrote for newspapers. So communication skills have always kind of been my strong suit. Um, I have master's degrees from both Harding and A-State, and I've been recently conferred to the doctoral program at A-State. Just a little bit about me. These are my beautiful children. I have three little boys. Well, one's not little, one's 15. Bo is 15, Ryan is 11, and Max is 10 months. So there's a lot of age gaps there. So this was their Easter picture. As we'll talk about here in a little while, having these meaningful personal conversations and letting your students talk about the things that they love and enjoy are important when learning a different language. I love to talk about my boys. I could talk about them all day. And so, if I was learning another language, that'd be one thing that I would want to do. This is just a brief look at my students. We had a literacy week a couple of weeks ago, a children's literacy week, where we studied on the importance of reading and literacy, and read several children's books. We had a book tasting in the library, and just kind of took the week to remember the importance of reading and what part that plays. All right, so every presentation has to have an objective. Okay, or if I don't have an objective, I
This recording
tend
from
to
Unique Language
talk in many different directions. So our objective today is to learn how to instruct EFL teachers on how to use authentic communication as a teaching tool within the classroom. And I'll use this term authentic quite a bit throughout the lecture today. That means real. What is real? Okay, what does real communication look like? And what does it look like within a classroom? Now, I have taught in the classroom for 15 years, and I can tell you when a student is listening to me, and I can tell you when a student is just being compliant or they are just being polite, but they are not really listening. We want meaningful interaction. And to do that, we use authentic communication as a tool. But let's start out with, and I have a timer here, so I'm going to keep up with my time. So what is communicative language teaching? Well, it's a technique that allows students to learn a language through immersive real life scenarios and communication. And the focus is on conversation instead of just mechanics and grammar. Now, I was an English teacher. I care about grammar. I'm not saying I don't care about grammar, because I do. However, what I care about more in the English classroom is writing and expressing yourself and being able to communicate. I read student writing all the time, and yes, whereas we do count off for grammar and mechanics, what I'm looking for is the ideas, is how they express what they're trying to say. And to me, that's the most important thing. Not did you spell every word correctly, or did you use commas in the right spot? That's not my most that's not the most important thing to me as an English teacher. Okay, so the beauty of CLT, and I will call communicative language teaching CLT for the remainder of the session. So the great parts of CLT that I have found, and this is coming from my own personal experience, is that I've seen my students use higher order thinking skills. And by higher order thinking skills, they're doing more than just getting the information and then regurgitating it or just putting it out there on a test. I am not a sit and get teacher. I was not a sit and get teacher in middle school classrooms, and I am certainly not as a college professor. I don't want to be the sage on the stage, be the person up there that everybody listens to, and then they have to write it all out on a multiple choice test. What I am is a facilitator for learning. I was that way as an English teacher. I was that way as a science teacher. And when I did that and I gave my students the liberty to make their own decisions and to create their own things, I saw higher order thinking skills. Also, learning with purpose. And I capitalized that because I try to do everything with purpose, and purpose means different things to different people. But to me, what is the reason behind this lesson that you're teaching? Why do these students need to know this? How is this going to affect them in the future? What is the purpose for this lesson? And with CLT, with teaching English, the purpose is you want these students to not just learn the grammar and mechanics of English, but understand the language, understand the vernacular, how we use it. Also, one thing that I have found in my own classroom that is very useful is kind of ditching the old tests. I mean, not to say you can't, I do one multiple choice a semester, but I do more authentic assessments, okay? Like portfolios. Now, when I say portfolios, sometimes people are like, oh, there's a lot of work, but it really isn't. And portfolios are so personal, and they show the growth that a student has from the beginning of a semester until the end. And within that portfolio can be writing samples, can be short stories and narratives, can be articles that they have annotated, all kinds of things, resumes. We'll talk about writing with purpose for, real life purposes in a little bit, but resumes go in those portfolios, things that they can use in the future, business documents, things like that. Finally, a very important part of CLT and in my own classroom that I teach is creating scenarios and lessons that are student-led. Right now, in my country, there's a big push for student-led lessons. And I know that, it sounds like it might be harder to implement, but it's not. It's been shown to raise student achievement, because the learning is personal to them. Okay, so this is a chart I'm sure you guys are familiar with, and they're actually moving forward with some different types of strategies these days, but I stick to Bloom's taxonomy because it is what's always worked for me. So when you look at the pyramid here, and I'm sure everybody in here that has been in education knows about Bloom's, but this is pretty much, the evidence as far as when you make something personal, students are going to learn a little bit better. At the very bottom of the pyramid is remembering and understanding. So this is just basic stuff. You're going to define something, you're going to memorize it, you're going to duplicate it on a piece of paper. Understanding, that's just when you are, let's say you're going to identify something like, let's say you're doing like a flower model and you want to identify the different parts or whatnot. You might know where all the parts are, but do you really understand what the parts do? Okay, the next one is apply and analyze. And here's what I tell all my teachers that I work with. I always tell them that you live in the middle and then you visit down below and you visit up above quite a lot, but you live in those two middle, the apply and analyze. You do that daily. Okay. Can the students apply what they know? Can they interpret what they've been taught? You live in those two rows. You have the students every day do something within those two rows, but you visit down below in the understanding and remembering, because there are some things that, yes, in an anatomy class, you have to remember and understand, right? I want the doctors that work on me to know where my different organs are, right? So there are some things you have to remember and understand. But you want to be able to, within your classroom, go up and down this pyramid and quite a bit, give your students the opportunities to create original work. And, that's part of my lesson tonight, that when you allow them to create original work, while they're learning this new language, it's going to be personal and it's going to further their development in the English language. I think you also probably know that students have been known to learn best by, number one, formulating their own questions, not just your questions that you give them, but the questions that they come up with. The next one is collaborating with peers. And I learned this at the very beginning as a young new teacher. I was in my 20s and I didn't know very much about education yet, but I knew that when I put students together in a group in a collaborative effort, then I got a lot of really great results out of that. The next thing is connecting prior knowledge with new knowledge, which means that you're I think of it as like unlocking a chest, a treasure chest. You have a key and you unlock it. When you can connect that prior knowledge with the new knowledge, you get such a great result. The next thing, as I said, is creating and designing things. And we're going to talk about those opportunities here in a little bit. And then finally, when you have students teaching other students, you're on that top level of Bloom's every time. So every semester, I give my students an opportunity to teach their peers in some way. And I think that if you used this strategy in an English classroom and you had a student teaching a lesson in English, then that would really be an awesome thing. Okay, so CLT is closely related to active learning. Okay, and so the next thing that we're going to talk about, I'm going to check my time. The next thing that we're going to talk about is what is active learning and what does it look like? So this is what it looks like in my classroom. And, when I was a science teacher, it was easier, I thought, to collaborate and to have innovation and design. But then I changed to English again, and I taught English. And I brought in those same collaboration strategy ideas and that same, idea of innovation and design, and let them design things. They all created things all year long, and I had great results from that. So active learning in my classroom looked like this: collaborations, students working together. It also was authentic feedback from other students. You give feedback as the teacher, and yours, of course, also needs to be authentic. But when they get authentic, constructive communication and feedback from their fellow students, that is meaningful. That is meaningful interactions. Also, are your assessments authentic? And if you don't leave with anything else with this lesson, I want you to think about your assessments. Are they authentic, and do they have purpose? Or are you just trying to check a box? Are they really showing you what your students have learned? Or is it just multiple choice questions and essays? All right. Innovation and design, as I already talked about, creating new things. And then finally, we go back to that phrase, meaningful interactions. Is what you're doing meaningful? Does it make sense? And is there a purpose behind it? And here is a little chart that I made with some of the big parts of active learning. The first part is engagement. You want students to be engaged. Now, I could walk into any classroom right now and I could count heads, and I could tell you how many students are actively engaged with the lesson and how many students are compliant, or they're being polite. They may be taking notes, they may be doing what they're supposed to be doing, but they're not engaged, they're not motivated. And then you have a few in the back that are on their phone, texting their girlfriend, whatever, those are in every class, and I don't usually take that kind of stuff personally at all, because in every classroom, that's kind of the situation. There are those that are engaged and ready to go, and then there are those that are in the middle, and then there are some that are completely tuned out, thinking about their vacation, thinking about next weekend, thinking about a television show, whatever. That's just how teaching goes. You have to try for as much engagement as you can. Motivation. Students learn better when they are motivated. What's their motivation? To learn English. Okay, that's a great motivation. To study medicine. What is their intrinsic or inside motivation? With active learning, I've also seen improved interpersonal skills. And with the pandemic, and I told myself that I wasn't going to talk about the pandemic a whole lot during this talk, but I will tell you that the 3 years that we have spent now in this pandemic, and thankfully I think we are on the way out, but I have seen a reduced amount of interpersonal skills. The students just don't have those interpersonal skills that they used to have 3 years ago. I know, I'm old, I've been around. The students that I had prior to the pandemic were far more social, far more talkative. They were not just sitting there on their phones doing that as much. What the pandemic did, it kind of made us go inside ourselves intrinsically. And I feel like to get back to where we need to be, we need to make sure there's more active learning in the classroom. And then finally, critical thinking is an important part of active learning. And critical thinkers are needed in this world, in everything, in medicine, in education, in law. We need critical thinkers. If we don't have any critical thinkers, what would happen? What would the world look like? So active learning is a way to push students to think about something in more than one way. Okay, so here's a couple of essential strategies for CLT that that I also added. And one of them is to teach these language skills across the curriculum. You know, don't just use the CLT strategies in the English classroom, but whatever you teach, whether it's science or math, use the CLT strategies across the curriculum. Um, and also, very important basic thing about learning another language is that most people learn by listening and reading first, right? That's how most people learn first. But if you can add, and this, I got this from an article that I cited at the end, but if you can remember the word swirl, which here we have ice creams with swirls and stuff, but if you can remember swirl, speak, write, interact, read, and listen, if you can remember to put those things in every lesson, something that the students are doing that has to do with speaking, something that the students are doing that has to do with writing, part of the lesson where the students are interacting with each other, that interpersonal connection, something where the students are reading and something where the students are listening. If you can hit all 5 of those every time in some small capacity, then that is very helpful. Okay, real world scenarios. Oh, look at those plants. I love plants. That's why I found that picture. Okay, so when you're having conversations with your students, or when you put them together to have conversations, try to broaden the topics that you use. That's kind of how I was when I would have my students write in their journals. We would kind of just write about out there things. Some of the discussion topics that your students can talk to each other about or write about could be popular culture, you know, national and international news events, television and movies, and music, travel, interesting hobbies and activities. Think about all the conversations that you guys can have about Stranger Things. I'm not sure if Stranger Things is as popular there as it is here, but here it's like I take off the weekend when I know that Stranger Things is coming with a new season, because I want the entire weekend to watch it. And then all I want to do is discuss it. I just want to talk about Stranger Things. Come Monday morning, if you watch it too, I'm calling you up and we're going to talk about what happened. And then my friends are all tired of talking to me about Stranger Things after like 3 days. But it's important to me. It's my favorite show. So, you know, I like Taylor Swift and I love her music. I love her lyrics. So I like to talk about, you know, Taylor Swift songs. It drives some of my professors I work with crazy, but I love Taylor Swift lyrics. You know, I like the show Wednesday. I think that's a great show. So think about the shows that the students like, that are popular. You know, I can't tell you how many times I have read or seen somebody on television say they learned to speak English through watching the show Friends. And I always think that that's so cool. I loved that show. It came out when I was 13, and so I watched it all the time as well. But I've read it several times that people would learn English, the vernacular, learn English conversation by watching that television show. Okay, so other things, like I said, mutual hobbies and interests. If your students share, if they share hobbies, if they like to run, play music, garden, whatever. Okay, so this next part, we will be, well, I'm going to stop and look at the chat and see if I have any questions. There is a YouTube channel, Learning English with Friends. That's awesome. I'm glad I stopped and looked at the chat. I did not know about that. Somebody find that link for me, because that's awesome. I'm going to share that. Okay. See, everybody loves Taylor Swift. Okay, thank you. Keep the comments coming. I love them. Any feedback I get is great for me. Okay, so what are some inventive, innovative ways that we can integrate reading, writing, speaking. Remember, we want to get all aspects of the swirl going. So first, let's talk about real world activities and things that you can do in your classroom that are real to life. Now, I was an English literature major and creative writing major when I was in college. Okay, so I didn't read a lot of real to life things. I read a lot of Mark Twain. I read a lot of Virginia Woolf. I read a lot of things that are not really real to life. However, when I had my own classroom and I understood as an English teacher that not everybody just loved literature the way that I love literature. So we would read a lot of things that were real world experiences, like manuals, like how to make something, how to, like a manual on how to change a tire, or how to do other mechanical things, useful information like that. We would also, there was a time where we all wrote recipes. We did recipes. We made a cookbook, and that was sharing information together and practicing our speaking and interactions. And it was practicing our writing, and then of course practicing our reading, all of that together. Also, as a teacher, I sponsored the student newspaper, and I loved doing that because the students were writing stories and researching stories that were close to them, that were personal to them. And then they were putting it together and creating their own newspaper. I also put blogs, and I love reading blogs, and I love podcasts too. I forgot to mention podcasts, but here in the United States, podcasts are the thing. A lot of people listen to true crime podcasts. I do on occasion, but I've got my favorite podcasters that I listen to. But that's a huge thing, and a lot of celebrities here in the United States are creating podcasts. But a lot of plain individuals like me are creating podcasts, and podcasts are something that can help you, as you're practicing with speaking and engaging an audience and things like that. Business plans, business models. I know a lot of students are in the tourism program in Santa Ana, and creating your own business plan. What is your dream business plan, right? That is something that's personal, that integrates all those things: reading, writing, speaking. Talk to your fellow students about what are your hopes and dreams. What is your plan for your business model? Just kind of think about real world activities that will motivate the student to get creative and get personal. All right. There we go. Let me make sure. Yeah, there we go. All right. So I go into writing a blog a little bit deeper. I love blogs. I love to read them. I love to write them. You can find blogging sites that are free, and you can find them that are private, where just the teacher and the students can collaborate on them and read each other's blogs. I did this with my English students, and they loved that. They loved the opportunity to write about the things that mattered to them, and I didn't care what they wrote about, as long as it was appropriate, school appropriate, as long as it was something that wasn't hurtful or hateful. They had the freedom to write about whatever they wanted to. I could give them a topic, or they could just do a free write. There's also blogs that, center around one specific thing, like a travel blog or a cooking blog. And then I put social media posts because, that's what we do, that a lot. So, creating social media posts in English and practicing in that way. So when students learn the subject matter students learn when the subject matter is personal to them. All right. Also, something else you can do in your classroom is have a theme. Choose a holiday, choose a theme like travel or famous literature, nature, science, just anything you want. Choose a theme for that week, and then that's what the writing needs to be about. The conversations should be about it. The reading, remember that swirl. We're speaking, writing, interacting, reading, listening. Everything revolves around that theme, and let that theme go for a week. I did this a lot, uh, especially in my K-12 teaching, and the kids really responded to that because I would choose a theme that everyone liked. All right, so finally, we are going to talk a little bit about how to integrate technology with CLT. And I teach educational technology. That's one of my specialty areas. I don't think technology should take the place of a teacher ever, because we need those personal interactions. However, technology is a tool, and it's a resource that can profoundly help us in whatever it is we're trying to learn. Part of technology, I think, is learning what 21st century skills look like. Okay. And so how is CLT and 21st century skills connected? Okay. What should technology, I'm sorry, I have a little typo right there, but it's okay because it's the idea that matters, right? Not the typo. What should technology look like in the foreign language classroom? My son is taking French right now, and he loves French. It's not the language I chose. I chose Spanish when I was in high school. I did my Spanish requirement in high school, and then I did my Spanish requirements in college. He's chosen French. He's a musician, and he wants to use French for this and that and whatever. And he's planning to go to Europe someday, blah, blah. But I hope he does. I just don't want him to live there. But anyway, he has an app, and I don't have it on my phone, but he has this app that he uses for his French lessons that is so helpful. And it's like a game, and that's called gamification, really, is what that's called. But it's so interactive that sometimes I think he forgets he's learning French with the game. So, I think technology can really be useful in classrooms that are teaching a language that is foreign to that classroom area. Okay, so I have digital natives versus digital immigrants. I'm gonna probably age myself here, but I am in the category of millennials. I'm an elder millennial. I was born in 1981, so a long time ago. Not that long ago, but I'm technically a millennial, and I'm also technically a digital immigrant, which means that technology is not something like technology as we know it now, like 21st century technology. That wasn't something that was always around for me. I grew up in the 80s, probably why I like Stranger Things, and then the 90s. So the 80s and 90s were primarily my growing up time, right? And technology was something that it was a trickle before it was a flow. It wasn't until my college years that we had Google, that everyone had an email address. I did my high school junior paper with a card catalog and a library. That's how I did my research. A lot of the research I did in college was card catalog and the language or the literature section of the library, which was in the basement of the U of A library. So there was a lot of walking back and forth and finding books and finding information. Also as a digital immigrant, I had to, learn how to use a cell phone. I had to learn how to use a smart TV. I had to learn how to use a laptop. All these things I had to, I didn't come in knowing. Now, digital natives, this is the Gen Z. These are the kids that were born in the late 90s, early 2000s. They don't remember a time when they weren't reaching for mommy's cell phone, right? I have 3 kids, and all 3 of them have gone through those phases where they really want to see mommy's cell phone, right? Because they don't remember a time when there's not technology. My 3 kids don't remember a time when they couldn't get on a computer and look something up. I don't even think my kids know what a card catalog is, to be quite honest, but digital natives are people that are just born into this technology. And so, use that within your classroom. 21st century skills, all of this whole list, very important stuff. 21st century skills, things that you need to know now. And in your EFL classroom, when you are utilizing the CLT strategies, you also need to utilize 21st century skills strategies. Are they thinking critically? We just talked about that. Are they communicating? We talked about that too. See, all these things kind of overlap, right? Are they being creative? Are they solving problems? Are they persevering? That's one thing that students, I think, since coming out of the pandemic, we do need to teach our students how to persevere or how to keep on going, because sometimes you're going to get bumps in the road, but you just have to persevere and keep going. Also, collaboration is a big skill. It's very important to understand how to work well with others. Are you going to like everybody you work with? No, but you need to learn how to appreciate everybody you work with. You need to learn how to play well with others. We learned that in preschool and kindergarten, but that's a skill some people it takes longer to learn, but it's important. Information literacy. With CLT, you're not just teaching it within the classroom, the confines of the classroom and in conversations, but are students able to get on a device and utilize these English speaking skills on a computer, on a phone, whatever? It bleeds over into other types of communication besides, speaking. Are they able to use their skills in English in other ways? Okay, so sorry, my computer keeps trying to go to sleep on me. Media literacy also. Are your English students, do they know how to look at different source material and tell a good source from a bad source? Can they utilize the English language in that way and be able to detect a good research source from a not so good source, right? Learning the language and the vernacular and what those things that are said but not said, what all that really means. Global awareness. That has become probably one of the most important skills that a student can have in this day and time, is being aware of what's happening in the world around us. Being tech savvy means a lot of things now, but we are also global citizens. Okay. We are not just citizens. For me, I'm a citizen of Arkansas. A lot of you guys are a citizen of somewhere in El Salvador, Santa Ana, San Salvador, Ilabasco, wherever you are from. You are a citizen of that area, but you are also a citizen of the world. So, when you are learning this new language, keep that in mind, that you are learning this language so you can communicate with people around the world. Self-direction, social skills, literacy skills. I could probably give you guys an entire hour on all what 21st century skills mean. I would love to do that. Civic literacy. What does it mean to be a civil servant, to be a civic-minded person, which that goes into social responsibility. And then finally, innovation and thinking skills. All very important stuff. And I'm trying to wrap up. I know I probably am running out of time. So these are just some quick things. Ovidio, how am I on time? Am I good?
Yeah, you have about 5 minutes.
Awesome. Okay, I have just enough time for this. Okay, so as I said, one of my favorite things to research and review are apps, because there's a million apps. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. So I like to go through and use apps, review them, and then give the good ones to my coworkers or my students or whatnot. And so I did this a couple of weeks ago for another training that I was teaching. I reviewed and picked 20 apps that I thought the teachers really needed to use right now, but they had to be free. So all of these have a free component. So the ones that I chose for you guys were apps that I think could be used for your CLT strategies. So that's the catch. Everything on here can be related back to CLT. But since I'm running out of time, I'm just going to kind of go through these very quickly. So I apologize for speaking fast. The first one is Miro, which is a virtual discussion board. That's where we're heading in online virtual learning, are these interactive discussion boards. Flipgrid is another one that is something that I think is very useful in 21st century classrooms. But Miro, this is a way that you can collaborate and idea share in real time. There are free Miro boards you can use. This is great for the workplace and in the educational setting. This is PicsArt, and I'm a very creative person, so I made this. Isn't that cool, guys? I totally made that in like 10 minutes. And don't ask me what any of it means because I'm just the artist. I can't really describe it. I'm just kidding. But I made that really quickly, totally free, all copyright free images. And how I would probably use this in an English classroom is I would let my students just go crazy and create something visual like this, and then explain it in English to their peers. What does this mean, or why did they create this? But this is a graphic design site. I use this, and I use Canva, CANVA.com. Both of those you can get free images. It's a free graphic design site where you can do all of these designs on your own. I started using these with students 7-8 years ago. I started using Canva, CANVA, with my students 8 years ago, and I have used something like that ever since. I either use that one or this one, PicsArt. If you're interested in the journaling, this is a free journaling site, and this is day one. And, maybe you just want to journal and only you read it, and that's totally fine. Maybe you don't want other people to read what you're writing about, and that's totally good. But, this is another way that you can make the writing personal. And then I use Rev Voice Recorder. It's free. You can get it on your iPhone. It is super easy to use. And if you are, if you want to record lecture notes, record performances, record conversations to play back to yourself so you could better learn the English vernacular, I suggest using Rev, completely free. Also, I'm big on social bookmarking. If y'all are wondering what I'm doing, my Basset Hound dog is down here under my feet trying to get on the camera. So I'm trying to keep her down here where you don't see her. Okay, so social bookmarking. I do a lot of web surfing, and then I find articles that I want to read, but I don't have time to read them right then. So I will bookmark the article and then save it for later when, let's say, my baby's taking a nap, and and I have a few minutes to sit there, and then I'll sit and I'll catch up on my reading on my phone. So Pocket is a really good app to do that. Okay, so I wanted to end on a question, and I hope that after my presentation, I have given you guys some ideas on what you can implement in your classrooms right now. Which one of these ideas do you think you could go ahead and implement? That's one question. But then our main question is, what does authentic class interaction look like? Okay, what do those meaningful interactions look like in real life? What do they look like in your classroom? I've never been to your classroom, so I don't know what it looks like in your class. So tell me what these authentic class interactions, purposeful, meaningful things that you're doing, what they look like. And then resources that I can share with you guys, but that is it.
All right. So thank you so much, Amber. Right now, we're going to send people into breakout rooms. Maybe everybody might want to take a screenshot of the question because this
Oh.
is what, yes.
There it goes. I'm sorry. Let me reshare it. Okay,
Yeah.
let's try it again. Okay, now we can take a screenshot.
Yeah, so that you don't forget it. Anyways, I will be broadcasting the question. Remember that we have about 5 minutes in the breakout rooms. Now, I think that we're going to have from 5 to 6 participants in each of the breakout rooms. Take advantage of the time. And if you see that no one starts the conversation, go ahead and you do it, okay? After 5 minutes or 6 minutes, I will pull you back to the main room and we will keep on discussing this. So right now you should see on your screen a message inviting you to join a breakout room. So please go ahead and join it. Just follow the link over there or just click join and you'll be sent to the breakout room. Remember, we have about 5 minutes, so you take advantage of this time. If you have problems joining the room, just let me know and I will reassign you to another group, okay? All right, somebody was requesting help in one of the breakout rooms. Once again, if you're still here, please go ahead and join the room you have been assigned and start the conversation. Maybe those people over there haven't studied yet, so you will be the one. So please go ahead and join the team. And if you stay here, we're going to talk to you. You will have to share your ideas here with us. Okay, if you're still in the main room, you have time to go and join the breakout room. Your fellow teachers, you can do it right now.
Well, actually, I got a question. You were
Right.
saying, for example, topics, for example, food, for example, blogs, for example, I don't know, literature, but what about history? I mean,
Well,
History, I know that some students, I don't know if it happens at the state, right? But here in El Salvador, I found students that they love reading history.
Well, then I would go with that. Every year I would kind of gauge what the interactions were like in my classroom and what students enjoyed. And it changed over the years. It changed what they liked and what they were interested in. And, I did have several students that were interested in history as well. I taught history. My first year as a teacher, I taught history. And so, we would do whole themes on World War II or World War I, or the Great Depression in the United States. There's a lot of
my favorite topics.
Yes. And so, yes, I would do thematic units concerning those. Also in English, now that I think about it, we did a lot across the curriculum with the Great Depression, and we did stuff in history, science, language arts, and social studies. So we covered all four of those or we covered that topic in all four of those. Another thing that we did that we really loved, we talked about the different decades and the historical things that happened in every decades, the fashion trends in every decade, the television movies from every decade, music. We did a whole 9 weeks, and I forgot about this. You reminded me of this. We did a whole 9 weeks on the different decades. We started in the 1920s and we worked all the way to present day. And that was so much fun. We loved that. So that's a great idea. That's actually probably, now that we're talking about themes, that was my favorite theme that we did, because we did that campus wide. All of us did it. And we also did Renaissance. We did a Renaissance fair, and that was a lot of fun too.
Thank you so much, Amber, and Mr. Portillo. I think he was the one with the question.
Thank you.
Well, now it is time to close the session. We have something else to show you today. I don't want to close this without saying thank you so much, Amber, for taking your time. I know you're a very busy person, but you decided to help us a little bit in promoting professional development opportunities for teachers of English in El Salvador, and we really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm always here to help. I love your country. I loved being there. This is such a treat for me. It's like I told Ovidio, I have speaking engagements here, there, and everywhere, and I have lots of things that I'm doing right now, but I stopped everything when our mutual friend Eddie said, Ovidio needs your help. I'm like, okay, I'm there, because he's one of my favorite people. So anytime. I'm just sorry my dog has been down here tapping her toes. So I hope y'all aren't hearing that, but I really appreciate it and love your country and can't wait to do this again. So if you guys want to do this again really soon, let me know.
Thank you so much. We will totally keep that in mind. Thank you. Now, before you leave, please don't forget to complete the attendance form, because once again, this is going to help us create your e-certificates, and also it is really important for us to receive some feedback from you. We're always looking forward to bettering the process of delivering these sessions, so we really appreciate your feedback. E-certificates will be issued at the end of the module. We're missing one session, and don't forget to check on our social media. We keep on posting very nice, very cool sources. We also have a handout with some with the information on this webinar, so you might want to check it later. Next, on May the 16th, we have our last speaker of the webinar series, module 1, and we will have Anabel Rodriguez talking about CLIL, a little bit about CLIL. It is going to be same time from 5:30 to 6:30. Don't forget that you have to pre-register so that you get the link for the video call. We're also working on the English for Tourism certificate. So if you are interested, if you haven't studied that, keep an eye or go and check on our social media and our website. There is information that you might want to use over there. Last but not least, Sandra Duran is also working with